This is a story time. Raining outside and thundering, you may get noises. There is nothing much I can do, but I want to tell you a story. Before the story, there was a few messages I got through my Facebook page asking why I am doing these simple topics, simple video content, while I can do some advanced concept and the designs and so many things. But there's a reason behind it. This is kind of I'm clearing out my way to something bigger, right? So stay tuned, and I promise you, even though these are some simple topics and simple concept, I promise you there are a lot of people out there, though they use these day by day, they don't know about these things, they don't know about these concepts. So it's important to know these things, because then you know what you're doing, and especially to write effective code and write performance full code. This is important. Okay, given all this, today's a story time, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and also share this video. Okay, what is this story and why this is important? This story is important to us for two reasons. One, because this is about a history of something we are going to learn and work a little bit more in future, right? So we are going to spend some time with this, so it's good to know about its history. Number two, this is a good example to tell, do not give up. To tell, though people criticize you, stick to what you believe. People might criticize you, but you stick to your plan, and you stick to your target, and you stick to what you believe is correct. This is a good example for that. So this is how the story begins. In November 2009, there was a guy giving a talk in a tech conference in Europe, and he said he was able to take JavaScript and combine with Chrome V8 engine and run JavaScript on backend. This guy called Ryan Dahl, and he named this framework called Node.js. In 2011, his one of video went viral from developer to hand, and person to person, email to email, where he claimed he was success combining V8 engine with JavaScript to run the JavaScript on backend. But if you take really, it was released in 2009. But this new concept, his new step, wasn't taken off very well, right? The Hacker News blog and nothing he's published was like popular on the dev community. But in 2010, a guy called Isaac Shooter created a framework called NPM, Node Package Manager. This Node Package Manager is helped to keep Node programs, JavaScript program, as a separate packages, where you don't have to deal with write your own code for everything what you need. It's a nice package management solution. For example, if you need to do A, B, C and tasks, if someone has already done the B and C, you can take their code through the NPM repository and use on your program. So this initiative helped a lot to Node.js to boost, because as usual in the early stages of this language, there was a tons of defect, and there was huge problems. Sometimes we don't know why this is coming, right? So now you don't have to debug everything, because one person, one developer can write a separate program and debug his own while you debug your code, right? So it kind of distributed to the community, so it helped to grow. So though NPM came into the picture, Node wasn't taken off with the velocity Ryan expected. But in 2009, there was a separate project started. Independent to the Node project, there was a separate project that called MongoDB. Though a lot of people was talking about NoSQL document databases, MongoDB was creating in 2009 and kind of growing up. But the problem was, people were thinking, we were from the document, we went to the relational database, and we went to the distributed database. Why we go back to the document databases? But with the same time, Twitter released their APIs. because these document databases was JSON, store the document with the JSON format, JavaScript object notation. But those days, a lot of APIs were dealing with SOAP and XML. These days, this period, Twitter released their API with the JSON support. And not only Twitter, with the social media bump up, almost all social medias created their own APIs, but all those APIs were RESTful and JSON. So now, if you're dealing with your document database which uses JSON, it is easy to take these JSON payload and store in the database directly, and when you need it back, you to take it as a JSON object. While the developers who use the relational databases, they had to take these JSONs and send through a JSON parsers and store in the relational database, and when they need it back, they need to take it and convert back to JSON and send to the API, right? But if you use the MongoDB, the things is very, very easy because it's used the same format. You don't need the conversion. So that will be kind of a other boost to Node.js. In 2010, July, as I remember, the Google people who was invented this V8 engine, the creators of the V8 engine, invited to Ryan Dahl to give a talk at Google about his creation. But when they introduced Ryan Dahl, they said, this guy I have no idea what he's doing. He's so controversial because he is trying to take JavaScript to run on a back end while rest of the world trying to take Java to run on a front end. So though he gave a talk in a Google in 2010 July, there was still some miracle to happen not to come into the mainstream. This miracle was actually happening. In 2010 November, there was a new game-changing framework release that's called Express.js. Express.js released by TJ, and this framework was really helping Node to play their game, because being in the early stage of a node, it was a really unstable, really not performance effective. But if Express.js was able to cover up all these problems and wrap up these APIs and expose with a stable and performance-full language. So not only Express.js, so we talk about MongoDB, but the developers' mind always working with a relational database. So it was not easy to understand this document database. People was used to write the SQL queries to manipulate the data, read, update, delete, all those are SQL queries. People had no idea how to query to the document database to extract the documents or the part of the documents. So early 2011, February 2011, there was a new framework release, this called Mongoose. Now we have MongoDB, we have Express.js, and we have Mongoose. So now developers don't want to learn everything about the document database and how to query document database. Mongoose made everything very simple. So in the same period, we got other framework called AngularJS. Now we have MongoDB, we have Express.js, we have AngularJS, and we have a Node.js which form Mean Stack. Mean Stack was a kind of a game-changing stack. So now developer communities from Java, from the .NET was migrating to this Mean Stack because that was promising to deliver very responsive and like a single page web application with a shorter period of time. And the life is so easy because API is dealing with the REST with the JSON, and Node can take the JSON through the Express and store in the MongoDB and take it and give it back to the APIs. Everything was seamless and very smooth. So it was a good time for Node. With all these things happen, the Ryan realized now it is not easy to control himself, so he needed a sponsor. In 2010, he wrote a blog post and explained the situation and asked for a sponsorship. As a response to that, the company called Giant taking over the Node and its trademarks and everything and taken to their hand and become a sponsor for the Node.js. So with this company acquiration things and with this sponsorship, it gave a guarantee to developers. Now Node is in a good hand. It is not a one developer hand anymore. So people was started using this, and after 1 year, they were able to release Node 0.6. Still is a beta and not a real public release. 0.6.0 with the support of Microsoft to give the ability to run the Node on a Windows, because a lot of developers creating websites and the programs to the Linux environment. So now with this jump, the Windows also support to the Node. Now most famous LAMP and the WAMP frameworks was converting to mean stack, and all the developers were hugging this newly created stack. So after some time, 2012, with certain things, Ryan was moving out and giving the steering to Isaac, who was the creator of the NPM, and then after some time, he was also moving out and giving the steeringship to TJ, who was the creator of the Express framework. So with these things happening, and then again after a little time, there is with the certain things happening, there are certain people, certain community from this Node community is moving out, and they created a new framework. They start to use this framework named as IO.js, not the Node.js anymore. They are using IO.js. But in 2015, this entire Node community was transferred back to a independent neutral organization called Node.js. So now, ever since then and till I'm recording this video, Node is completely handled by this independent organization called Node. So with all those movings, in 2015, Node was able to release their first non-beta version, which is the first development version according to the semantic versioning convention, which is a 1.0. Before that, all the versions was below the 1, is a 0.06 and so on. So those versions were LTS version, but they released first version in 2015 as a version 1.0. But after again renaming this IO.js back to Node with the Node new organization, they released version 4.0. That was their first release. Ever since then, today, the time I'm recording this video in 2021, we have a Node 14.0, which is the LTS version, and 15 is kind of a latest version. So from in 2009, Ryan does ordinary tech talk given in Europe, and today, 2021, with the version 14.0, which is the Node latest version, the Node came in a so long journey in a shorter period. People was criticizing it, developers were going away from that, developers were criticizing this because JavaScript mean to work on the front end. JavaScript used to work on the front end but not the back end. Now Ryan taken JavaScript to run on a back end with the support of Chrome V8 engine. So now, today, in 2021, a lot of developers, a lot of architects, and a lot of leaderships are prefer to go to this Node platform and use their latest capabilities for their system. Now, by today, there are a lot of enterprise systems what usually implemented with Java. Now there are new services, especially with the microservice architecture and also serverless programming. They are moving to the Node because architecturing principles are evolving, design patterns are evolving, infrastructures are evolving. So now from the Java and from the .NET, the usual compiled structured language, developers are more prefer to go with the Node kind of languages today. We don't know tomorrow. We don't know whether Node will taking over the space what Java has today. But Node still has its own problem, its own issues, and they're dealing with it. Probably those issues will fix in soon. But for now, Node, I think, what I feel, Node won the game. And Node is a kind of a game changer. Not only Node, there are a few other languages like Python and the Go are also in the competitive race, but still Node playing its own role on its own spectrum where other people is still not touched. Then that's the story, today's story, how Node came and how Node evolved to where it is today. So subscribe, like and comment. I'll see you in the next video.